Welcome to Navarrero's online showcase video. Today I want to start the episode by talking about something that I got wrong in the last one. So I was talking about my whole plan about only using the Montezuma and the Eureka to transport logs, lumber and beams until I unlock the Lima and then use that for the new industries. But I'm still going to wait until I unlock the Lima and purchase that to deal with the wheat farm and everything after that. It's out of the question of only using the two other engines until I get to that point. So for that I'll be adjusting my plans in order to make this a bit more easy on myself. I made the grave mistake of thinking that the Lima was actually a tier 6 engine. It turned out to be tier 7 and that makes a huge difference. And to quickly explain that, for the longest time I wasn't aware of that myself. The tiers in the shops, or in the shop, is actually all linked to the level that you have as a player that you increase by doing successful deliveries. So anything tier 2 in the shop is requiring you to at least be level 2 in order to even buy it. Anything tier 3 requires you to be level 3 and so on and so forth. And every time you get to a new level, the next one is gonna be requiring twice the amount of XP, so twice the amount of total delivery value and all of that kind of stuff. That's roughly how it works, and in the last episode I was around level 5, and I thought I only needed to go up to level 6. So that meant the amount of work from level 1 to level 5 would be the same as from going from level 5 to level 6. So basically putting in the same amount of work into this playthrough that I had already. However, since I'm not aiming for level 6 but instead level 7, that means that the amount of work to unlock the Lima is actually 3 times the amount that I expected. And that's definitely too high for me. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to work at the iron mine and the smelter in order to get the level up, since both of those industries actually have quite a decent amount of valuable stuff in here. So iron ore goes for 200 per hopper, at least for the high capacity hopper, and the rails at the smelter go for 250 per stake car. So that's definitely a huge leg up from the 72 that you get for beams or lumber. And that should help increase my level quite a bit. However, going up here into the mountains with only the Montezuma and Eureka wouldn't have worked either. So I'll be showing you guys my new engine in a moment. But first let's take a closer look at the iron mine and the station here overall. But yeah, things have changed a bit and I'm also considering just getting a few more helper engines in the meantime, just to make things even easier and smooth out the process of filling up the cars and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, overall, the iron mine is pretty much in the same location as you get with the default placement. I'll just try to make it work a bit better in this area. Overall, it's still... The area is just a bit too uneven for a station and just an industry in general. And I'm really surprised that the devs haven't gone back to this and just even out this entire place here. I mean, that would of course mess up a few things, but I think in the long run, it's another one of those things worth considering. But yeah, I try to make my stuff look at least a little bit alright. It is still kinda janky, but I think it should work out decently enough. So let's now get into the whole station that I built here. For the most part, it's pretty easy and it should become apparent once I get into a bit of a bird's eye view here. This is really just a balloon loop with a few extra bits here and there. Reason for this is that I don't have the smelter up on another plateau further into the mountains. Actually, everything that you can possibly get the supplies from or deliver the iron ore to is all in this direction. All down in the valley, meaning that it's perfectly fine just having one single track going in and out of this area. It doesn't require any further connections. So, the way this entire station works with all of the extra bits of track here and there is that you are supposed to come in on the right hand side and then just go around this entire loop past the industry itself, dropping off all the supplies here. And this bit of track here means that you can actually, once you are past the switch, flip that over and reverse all of your stake cars into this siding, which is just here to act as a bit of storage. And then you can use the road engine to attach to the hoppers here and then load up the iron ore and deliver it down in the valley to the smelter. Pretty similar to what I had on the other playthroughs in the past, just kind of situated a tiny bit differently. Starting out here, I actually had 18 hoppers in total. I'll tell you in a bit what happened to the ones that are missing here right now, but yeah, it meant that this track needed to be a bit further than the entire plateau could really muster. So this is a bit of a weird setup, likely not OSHA compliant, but who cares? Certainly not people working on the railroad back then, from all the stories that I heard. But yeah, right now there are a few fewer here, and with how the ratios worked out, with 18 cars, it actually meant that having 12 stake cars, I needed to do 2 deliveries with those, and on the second one I would then swap out the stake cars for the hoppers and then fill all of that up and bring it down into the valley. Since dealing with 18 hoppers at a time was a bit weird and sluggish with all the inertia, getting the train going, breaking it in again in order to stop at the chutes over here, I decided to have another siding on the inside, allowing me to just take the train in segments, load up maybe 6 cars at the time, put the loaded cars onto this siding, get the next few cars in line, and once everything is done, put everything back together and just drive out this direction here. Once I get the helper engine, which I hope will really improve things over here, since my road engine, while I quite enjoy it, is overall a bit sluggish, and just having a tenderless engine should be a bit faster in that regard, since it's not gonna be as heavy in itself. But it's also gonna require a slightly different setup, because if I had my road engine on this end, then the helper engine in front of the hoppers, it would mean that the helper is actually in between the road engine and the hoppers, so that's really no good. So therefore I would be taking the road engine, driving it further down this track, past the switch over here. And that means that at that point, once the hoppers are loaded up, I can just push them in reverse back onto this track, and then they're just gonna be rolling down towards the road engine in this direction. So in the end, the whole balloon loop setup here is actually gonna work out in another way as well. And I just gotta say, while I absolutely love my MIA playthrough, the amount of turning the trains around back then kinda got annoying for me, and if I go back to that once, or when I go back to that once I have my new PC back up and running, I'll definitely be reworking a few stations here and there, because most of the stuff there is laid out in a way that means that if I want to do a single delivery, I go to the station that supplies the resources, I go in there, I load the train up, I turn the train around. When I go to the station that takes the resources, I deliver everything and I turn the train around, and I think within reason I would certainly like to have a few run around or just looping tracks here to make things at least a slight bit more convenient. But yeah, I'm gonna have to figure that out once I'm back on that playthrough. That's certainly not gonna be the case for every single station. But yeah, going down into the valley now and having a closer look at what I have over there and also the new engine. There's gonna be a bit of a change here compared to the last episode, and it might be slightly shocking. So here we are going past the sawmill, which is of course where we need to go for additional supplies. But here in the valley we have something quite magnificent to look at. Please ignore the station over here, we're gonna talk about that in a moment. I just care more about the rest of this monstrosity, which is the new junction spaghetti thing. Pretty reminiscent of my time playing City Skylines with how weird this all looks, but trust me, it makes a lot of sense once you get it. Basically, this whole thing is dealing with 5 different entry and exit points. We have the track down south going to, well, the exit of a sawmill and also a few more southbound industries. We have the exit going to the east here, going into the sawmill as an entry point. We have another track coming down from the iron mine that we just followed. And further up north we will find, going further to the west, the smelter. And even further north, the starting area and the other industries that we have seen in the last episode. So these are 5 different points. And while not everything needs to be connected to everything else, my first attempt at connecting this was kinda boring because it was just a bunch of Ys. This whole thing is ultimately a Y with another track going straight through it. Just a regular freeway junction otherwise, and well, up until this point I had another Y over here. And connecting to the iron mine would have been the 3rd Y, the smelter would have been the 4th Y, and at this point I just had to think, is this really the wisest way to do this? Yeah, pun intended, I can do a lot of them, but why though? So yeah, I decided to make something where I just overlap all the stuff and try to intertwine it a bit more. Makes it look a bit more interesting, makes it handle a bit more interestingly, but overall it doesn't really do too much apart from restricting the engines to not be able to go anywhere from any station where they are not supposed to go to. For example, coming down from the iron mine, there isn't really any reason to go anywhere all the way up north. You really just need to go to the smelter, to the sawmill, or maybe to the freight depot, if at all. But that's really all of that. You don't really need to go to the wheat farm with your iron ore or something like that. So those are connections that are not possible, making the entire routing actually easier, once you at least understand what's going on here. However, I may have also kind of tricked myself here, and this is where we finally need to take a look at the engine and the actual train that I assembled here. First up, the new engine. This is the Cook 280, the Cook consolidation. I was considering to go with the 260 with a coal burner, but then I thought I kind of like the consolidation a bit more. I just always used to like this, and yeah, therefore this was my preferred choice. And the only thing I regret about it, when I got it I really couldn't come up with a nice name, so right now it's just called the Iron Detourneer. So yeah, detour, because I wasn't really planning on doing anything with iron ore for the time being, and also just combining it with the word engineer for some reason, just to be a bit clever. Or mountaineer, whatever. So if anybody has a better idea for a name, I'm open for suggestions. I should be able to readjust this using Railroad Studio. Would be nice being able to rename the engine just in-game, but as it is, at least it works with third-party tools. But yeah, overall, engine number 3 officially. Still love this one. It's working wonders for the route that I needed to go up, but overall, well, it's a brilliant road-going engine, but not good as far as doing any yard work is concerned. Way too heavy for that, kinda sluggish. But besides that, for what I bought it, it's really working out quite well. So let's now talk about the rest of the train here, all the cars that I have. So I talked about that in order to fill up 18 hoppers, I would need to do deliveries with 24 stake cars. Over here, I have 8 of those stake cars and only 6 hoppers, so this is a ratio at which this thing can basically, if you fill up all of these hoppers 50-50 with beams and lumber, deliver all of that, you can fill up all the hoppers that are trailing behind here. So my idea is to cut the amount of running empties that I'm doing with this route. So instead of going up to the sawmill with loaded stake cars, coming back down maybe with empties or with fully loaded hoppers, and then taking that to the smelter, bringing the empty hoppers back up to the iron mine, and then taking the empty stake cars all the way back down, I will now run empty hoppers but fully loaded stake cars to the iron mine, then bring loaded hoppers and empty stake cars to the smelter, and then only run fully empty cars back to the sawmill before I refill everything and just turn this into like a freeway way of handling things. So this is the basic idea, and this is my alternative way of handling the iron mine from this point on. Just trying out if this can actually work out, so I'm not completely sure about this yet, but in theory it should work. So now to my problem. Do you remember when I just said that I set up this entire junction in a way that I can only connect between stations or industries that actually need to go to each other? By the time of building this, I didn't think that the smelter and the sawmill needed a direct connection, because they really don't have any dealings with them whatsoever. But with this train now, I think I'll have to rework some of what I got here. So yeah, that didn't really take too long until I ran into this issue. If I went with all the wires in the world, it would have been a bit weird. And to be clear, another reason why I went with this station layout to begin with, I always needed to do at least 180-degree loop here. And any way I could come up with using wires meant that this was part of the main line and getting really just kind of squiggly instead of being a decently straight line. So you would really just snake your way back and forth through this whole mess of multiple wires in order to get to where you wanted to. And with how I set it up here, I can at least bypass this with any track that has at least a potential to be at least halfway straight. Another reason why this is maybe a bit more complicated than it otherwise needed to be, I tried to make it so that every single track would first split off in different directions, and then once you get to the next point where you needed to go, everything would just come back together. So from this direction, you see you have merging tracks over here and another merging track over here. I didn't want to start maybe merging into another track and then have that split off. That would have made a few things easier, but it would have kind of weakened my design a bit in a weird way. So for example, the easiest way of handling this whole thing here would have been to just take this track, merge it over here when I don't even need this one anymore, because then I can easily decide between going into the sawmill or further down south into anything else here. So the way I'm likely going to be dealing with this is making another splitting switch in this direction and then another merging one over here. Easier way, of course, would be to just connect that track right here, but again, I don't do easy. I want it complicated. I want it to look like city skylines, highway junction, and I think so far I've already kinda achieved what I wanted here. Anyway, so much about this. It's a bit of a mess, but it is my mess, and I didn't want to go with the boring standard solution of just having a ton of wires. Of course, I could have made a four-way junction at some point, but with how uneven everything is and all of that, I don't think that would have been enough even. It would have been enough if I kept the Y over here and then maybe did this here with smelter iron mine. But then again, we have the other thing over here, and it's just so much to think about. So let's now finally talk about the station right here. This is something that I built very shortly after I finished this part over there with the entire junction. And I think I briefly mentioned this in the last episode as well. This is supposed to be collection station of some sort. If I want to go up into the mountains towards the wheat farm and bring the water from the well over here and the seed from the freight depot, I decided to have a station right here where both of those routes would be crossing anyways, and just this will be the point where I deliver a few empty boxcars and a few empty tank cars to, and then just get an engine that will take the tank cars to the water well real quick, then bring them back here once they are full. Do the same for the boxcars at the freight depot. And then all of those will be combined into a single resource train, and that will be carried up into the mountains. Would be kind of weird doing everything, well, apart from each other. So this is how I want to deal with this, and I'll likely just be using the Montezuma over here, since right now I'm using the Cook consolidation for all the stake car business, and the Eureka has taken over the log carrying business, since that is a bit faster. So the Montezuma for the time being is gonna take care of all of those cars once they arrive. Right now I'm more into getting all the levels to finally get the Lima unlocked. But yeah, this is the main reason why this station is here. And since at that point I didn't have a full station built, we are going to take a look at what I have regarding all of that in the next episode. I also just decided to make a little area over here to deliver a few engines that I don't need right now. So this is really just halfway temporary multi-function yard layout. Really just a tiny one. The main thing is gonna just be about getting the tanker cars and the box cars here, and everything else. It's just everything more permanent should be delegated to the main yard. So that's what we are going to take a look at in the next episode, including the smelter. I think this one would just be way too long if I try to include those as well. So for the last part of this video, I tried my hand at doing the whole telegraph pole setup again, and I don't think it's really working. These crossing over parts is something that happened during putting everything down, so I can blame that on myself. However, I noticed that I think this one is doubled up again in terms of wires. They at least seem to be rather thick here. And also if we go further down this line, again the same thing happens that we already had a few months ago. I placed down all the stuff in a way that it connected. I saved the world, I left, came back, and it wasn't connected anymore. And therefore I'll just be tearing this stuff down, because again, if this doesn't work reliable, it's really not worth just trying to get it to work anyway. So yeah, this is gonna take until they finally fix all the telegraph post connections before I finally do this on a larger scale, which I would love to do, but then again, with my PC always being on the brink of death here until the new one is finally back up and running, might be better to kind of not go too deep into putting down additional stuff that doesn't really help with playthrough in any way. So yeah, this is gonna get removed, and until I see something in the patch notes that something about this has been done, I don't think it's worth giving this another try. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the time being. I'll be seeing to getting this whole junction thing sorted out, and we'll see what comes of it in the next episode or so. Till then, thanks for watching, see you next time, and have a good one. Bye bye.